Hello, this is Sarah.
And Jeremy.
And we're here with Remy, our oldest son, with Caregiver Chronicles. Today we're going to talk about Jeremy's diagnosis with autism and how that's affected him and what it's like to be a big brother and have a little brother with severe special needs. But first we want to get into some thank yous. We want to thank everybody who listened to our first full-length episode.
Which was called The Time Joey Got Diagnosed with Autism.
Yes, it was, Remy, and we shared that. We had a lot of people like and share it and got a lot of positive feedback on it.
And thank you about that.
And thank you very much for that. And we also got some questions that we want to answer on last week's episode. One of the questions was on acronyms.
Like ABA.
Yes, they wanted to know what the acronym ABA stood for. Well, ABA stands for Applied Behavioral Analysis, and it's one of the most common therapies used in autism for behavior. Another acronym they weren't sure about was BCBA, and a BCBA is a board-certified behavioral analyst. So when you hear us use those terms, we're talking about Joey's ABA therapists are the people who do it, and then when you've heard me use the term BCBA, that's actually the person above them. They're board certified, they have extra education and extra certification, but they're still all very wonderful. And then I know you guys have heard me use the term birth to 3, which is called birth to 3 of the state we live. Some states it's called birth to 3, other states it's called early intervention, and it's just basically a series of therapies, whether it be physical therapy, speech therapy, behavioral therapy, ABA, or other types of behavioral therapy.
Or like physical therapy or occupational therapy, like I take occupational therapy.
Exactly like that. So the abbreviations, the acronyms for OT and PT, you might have heard me use too. OT is occupational therapy and PT is physical therapy. And once in a while you might hear me use the acronym SLP. That stands for Speech and Language Pathologist. And Joey has all of those therapists in his life on a daily basis. So this week we're going to talk about Remy and his diagnosis of autism.
Which is the exact opposite of my brother.
Pretty much. Autism affects Jeremy very differently than Joey. Little Jeremy is very vocal, as you can tell. And
he started talking when he was about 18 months old and hasn't shut up.
Yes, Jeremy is a very talkative little boy sometimes. But sometimes it can be overwhelming, but a lot of times we don't mind. So Remy, do you remember when you were diagnosed with autism?
It was sometime right before my birthday. I think maybe January 22nd or January 24th. I think it was on maybe a Monday or a Wednesday. Or sometime around those lines. I believe it was January 22nd or January 24th. And 2018 is when I got diagnosed with autism.
Yeah. Do you remember what the evaluation was like?
The evaluation was kind of like I had to do a few tests. I had to answer a couple of questions, that stuff.
Okay.
And I also had to make a story.
Yep. And did you like making a story?
I thought it was okay, but I was going to use some of the stuff that the other person used for the first story, and what was remaining is what I had to use.
Yeah.
So how did you feel when the doctor told you that you have autism?
I was like, oh no, this is I'm either going to lose all my speech and everything I know and everything, or this is a hoax.
Why did you think that you might lose your voice?
And everything. Because of how it affects Joey. Like, Joey is autistic and he can't talk at all, and he's 5 years old and still can't talk.
That is very true from, I remember not long after the diagnosis, we were visiting my in-laws, and Remy kept asking me questions about it, and he said, I don't remember all the questions, but I do remember him saying, am I going to lose my voice? And I explained to him that it shouldn't happen. And he's like, but Joey lost the words that he had. And then he turned to me and says, the autism diagnosis scares me.
And I think most kids would be scared by that, especially seeing somebody that was very much on the opposite end of the spectrum, in the scarier end on the spectrum. I know that's kind of a harsh way of putting it, but autism is a spectrum disorder. Not everybody with autism, nobody, as a matter of fact, with autism will have the same experiences.
The exact same.
Exactly. You're going to have people with, where you barely can tell that they're different at all. And then you're going to have people who are the complete opposite, who, you just look at them and just by the way they're jumping and flapping and screeching, hey, that child is different. And there's people that this affects everywhere in between in all different levels. So just because you know one person with autism, one person with autism. I know we're doing this podcast to talk about our family and our experiences, but they're our experiences. And I know that some people are going to have different experiences with us, and some people are going to have similar situations. Not every situation is going to be the exact same, and we understand that. We're just here to guide families through this journey, and hopefully they can take comfort in knowing that, their situation's different, but they're not completely alone, and, we're just here for you. So, how do you think having autism makes you different?
How it makes me different.
Yeah, than like other kids.
How it makes me different is it affects me like before my mom and dad knew that I had autism. Let's say we were having a conversation about how to start a campfire, and I suddenly go ranting on and say something like this. In 2014, Clint Boyer flipped over in the big one at the Daytona 500.
Okay. So that's how it affects.
To rant on NASCAR crashes and stuff and other stuff, and so and my mom would say, Jeremy, you're being rude.
Yes. Well, was it that you're being rude, or was it that it was hard for you to stay on the topic?
It was hard for me to stay on the topic, but my mom didn't know at that time, though.
Yes.
Just yet.
Is there anything else that that makes you different, or anything else that you think is harder for you than other kids?
To make friends.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when I go to the park, I either only play with the friends that I already have, or I do better just making friends where there's only like one or two than in like a group of let's say 10.
Yeah. So another question I have for you is, now you do have friends though, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You have quite a few friends now. You're getting better at that too, huh?
I'm getting a little bit better at that, but most of the time when I go to the park, I would either do parks and I don't make any friends. I would either just walk around doing lightsaber battles from Star Wars or reporting NASCAR crashes like Miguel Paludo, Harden the wall coming out of turn number 4.
Okay.
And that stuff, and do cast Harry Potter spells like Sectum Sempra.
So as a sibling of a child on the spectrum, or as a sibling, like an older brother, with a little brother who's got severe special needs, what do you want us to tell other kids like that have a sibling with special needs, like your brother? Do you have anything you want to say to them?
I want to tell them, if you have a sibling with special needs, like my little brother Joey, do not #do not feel left out. There are probably a lot of kids who have that scenario.
Yeah.
All over the entire, and I'm talking about the entire world. There may not be many that you know of in your town or even in your community, but trust me, there's always one for each street, each town, each community.
Yeah.
At least.
Well, I think that's some good advice. Do you love your brother?
Yep.
How much do you love him?
The same as you guys.
Oh, so that's quite a bit. Do you think your brother loves you?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do with your brother?
Probably just follow him around the house.
As a kiddo on the spectrum, yourself, what would you like to tell other kids about you, or other grown-ups, or just other people in general? What do you want people to know about you?
One thing that I want people to know about me is that sometimes having sudden changes can be hard for me. Like, for the example, one day we were going to the zoo. We were going to go to the zoo, and Mommy was singing to Joey, time, time, time for zoo, time to go to the zoo. Today we're going to the zoo. Hooray! 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 Like that. And then suddenly we have like a tire from, I think it was a pothole or something, and Mommy's like, nope, we can't go. And I was like, Argh!
That made you mad, huh, buddy?
Yes.
But you're working on not getting mad with sudden changes, right?
Yep.
To follow up, I was looking up some dates earlier, and Remy was right. When we went for the initial evaluation for him, it was a Monday. It was actually January 15th of 2018. And the official diagnosis was the second day when we went back, which was a few days, the next week. It was Wednesday, January 24th. So he got that date spot on.
After Jeremy's diagnosis, it hurt to hear that. We sat in the office and my husband and I both cried. It was the second time we'd gone through this with all the research we had already done with Joey and his diagnosis, and I had started that research. I noticed a lot of things with autism described Jeremy to a T. So I knew what she was going to tell us, and I think my husband did too.
And it does not make it any easier to hear when you know it's coming. I don't know for a fact that it makes it harder to hear, but I wouldn't be surprised if it really did make it harder because we knew it was coming.
I think we knew both times what
Yes.
they were going to tell us. And I don't know, Remy was about to turn 7 before he got this diagnosis. And to think that we missed something, that feeling of we missed something, our kid could be better off if we're better parents, that thought ran through my head too. There were a lot of things that we were thinking that were very, just hard things like that. We did sit in her office and we cried, but we took a deep breath, we got up, we said, you know what, we know he's gonna be okay. He's a very bright little boy. She actually told us brag alert, she told us in the diagnosis when they did his assessment that he had an IQ of 125, which is, very impressive for a little kid. We knew he was a smart kid, and he was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder and anxiety as well, which honestly I wasn't surprised for the anxiety. Post the interview, we had a list of recommendations. We had, assessments on different things, his strengths, his weaknesses, which most of it we already knew. We knew things that he was really good at. We knew things he was really bad at. Excellent memory and logic skills, but horrible, gross and fine motor skills, and just various things like that. So we had the list of recommendations, one of which was counseling. We got him into counseling fairly quickly post that diagnosis, and then we also felt it was very important to get him with the occupational therapist in school. And we also thought it was a priority to get him in counseling in school as well, and peer counseling where he met with his peers several times a week, or a couple times a week for like lunch groups and things like that. And those things have been very helpful.
Once a week.
Once a week?
Once a week? Okay.
So we did jump right on the wagon with getting services for him as well. The thing is, we tried to get some services for him beforehand. We tried to get occupational therapy through the school beforehand, and actually had a very hard time getting it until we had that diagnosis. So, if there's a question with your child, get that diagnosis, please. It makes the difference in services.
You know, we had to get outside occupational therapy at first until we got the diagnosis, and then we were able to get it through the school, and it's done a lot for him. I mean, we still got a long road to go, but his writing is better now than it was just from the work that they've done with him. I can actually read some of it now. Before we really couldn't read it, and it was more than just the, you know, young kid learning to write. He was behind where he should have been, and he's still a little behind on that, but he has gotten so much better than he was.
Gum is another big thing in school.
Because I chew on my fingernails and my clothes.
Yes, like his brother, he has an oral sensory issue where he feels the need to chew on pretty much everything. So the school was okay with us letting him have gum.
But he's actually made tremendous improvements with socialization, his fine motor. His oral sensory issues are still a little bit of a problem. But again, the gum is a completely reasonable solution. And to take him places and to have him chew gum, that's really not a big deal. He knows how to use it appropriately and almost always does.
Two other things that I've noticed have helped him along the way have been sports and scouts. He has played soccer, football, and basketball. And while, yes, he's a little uncoordinated at times, his motor skills have improved from all the time he spent playing soccer or learning football or basketball. And then going to scouts helped, one, with socialization, because he's with the same group of kids, and they get to know him and they understand his quirks and he understands theirs, and it's all better for them. And all the things he's learned, like he learned to whittle, and he would not have been able to do that with his fine motor skills as they were. So with the OT and working through scouts, he's become a lot better at doing a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, like, the scouts is a great... I have to give a plug to our scout group. They're awesome. The parents in there are very understanding with Joey's situation. And they're just great. And Jeremy really gets along with the boys. It's a really good... It's a special group of people that he's in scouts with. I really respect all the parents and all the kids. They're just a great group. I know most scout chapters are. So with that, we're gonna let Remy send us out. Jeremy and I have to run back in and get Joey. Go ahead, Rem, tell them where they can find us on social media.
You can find us at Twitter at CaregiverCron1, and you could find us at Facebook at just Caregiver Chronicles, and on Instagram you could tag us at Caregiver Chronicles 2. So we are on Spotify, Anchor, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
Pocket Casts.
Yeah, we're on Google and Pocket Cast both.
Yep, and a few other podcast platforms.
And other podcast platforms.
If you Google Caregiver Chronicles podcast, we should come up. Thank you very much for listening.
See you next week.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.